Welcome you all to another session sponsored by Ability. This is Revati and I'll be your host for today. Hope all of you are doing fine and are keeping safe. In our today's session, we'll be discussing about understanding and dealing with rigid behaviors in children with ASD. You will learn techniques and strategies to develop behavioral flexibility in children with ASD. This session will be conducted by Miss Tejashree Majumdar Gambhir. More about her a little later. With no further ado, let's begin with our session for today. A quick introduction about ability.
Every child is unique and wants to thrive. Excellent carers can help a child blossom. To achieve excellence, educators and therapists require years of experience and mentorship. We at Ability are obsessed with how we can reduce this time to excellence by bringing the best knowledge from around the globe and yet make it very affordable. We believe this is very important to do for the community. Please join us in the movement to bring out the best in every child. Besides the knowledge sharing from various experts through community webinars, we have embarked on our next journey, and that is to provide you with more knowledge through workshops across learning paths, specially designed for you. Starting with ASD, ADHD, behavioral, speech and language development, motor skills, remedial English, and maths. We intend to cover more areas as we learn from you what you need and create more resources for you. As an Ability member, you will have access to at least 6 live workshops every month, which are part of each learning path, and unlimited access to the past workshop recordings. You will also have access to the resources management tool and the student success tools. If you want to start using them in your practice, please ask our support group. We will send you guides on how to use them. Very soon, we will also be offering you an opportunity to be part of the curated community and mentorship programs. More will be shared when we are ready. As mentioned earlier, among our experts and ability team, we have specially created several resources for you to download and share with anyone who can benefit from them. For every workshop you attend, we will also be sharing the relevant resources with you post your learning. So don't forget to register for the workshops that we have specially organized for you, and continue to give us your most genuine feedback so that we can improve and continue to build value for you. Thank you, and we shall see you at the workshops.
Moving on, I'm happy and delighted to share with all of you that Ability is going to come up with a new free program on inclusive school. This program is crafted in collaboration with experts from India, Philippines, and Singapore. By attending this program, you will learn everything that you have to know to assist children with special needs in an inclusive school setup, starting with that of child development and delays, gaining more understanding about the diverse special need conditions, following by getting an understanding on the right mindset to set up an inclusive school setup in your school premises, followed by learning strategies which are evidence-based and practice-based to support children with special needs. This program consists of 8 modules, which has about 60 plus workshops. And if you are an Ability Premium member, you will be able to access all these workshops for free. This program will be launched very soon in the month of September. This program is for everyone, be it educators, teachers, and also parents who are striving to improve the outcomes for children with special needs. If you are a teacher or an educator working in an inclusive school setup, wanting to adapt and implement this in your school, write to us at support@ability.com. More details will be shared with all of you all. Stay tuned for receiving further updates about this program very, very soon. Now, let me introduce you all to our resource speaker for today. Ms. Tejashree Majumdar Gambhir. She is a psychologist, behavior intervention expert, and also a student of ABA. She has years of experience as panel consultant for special needs at Sahyadri Hospitals and an inclusive facilitator at Pawar Public School in Pune. She has worked with individuals with special needs and their parents through evidence-based therapy approaches. She advocates training and empowering parents, teachers, and carers, and increasing the overall quality of life of individuals with special needs and their families. It's a pleasure pleasure to have you here with us today, ma'am. I hand over the podium to you.
Hi, thank you, Revati. Thanks for the kind words. And thank you, Ability, again for having me. And welcome to all the participants who are there. Lovely participation last time, and I had so much fun. Okay, so this is what we're going to go through today. So, as you must have gotten it with your invitation and everything, we are going to do a quick recap on the framework of understanding, the challenging behaviors in children with special needs, especially autism. Okay, so we have discussed about this in greater detail in one of our previous workshops. All right, so beginning workshops, which was titled as understanding the framework of challenging behaviors, right? So we will discuss a little bit of that. Then we will explore all the links and possible causes, other triggering factors or manifestations which are linked with rigid behaviors. How are their presentations? What are the different kinds of these rigid behaviors come under these umbrellas and everything? And then we can go ahead with a little bit of how we can go ahead about this, what we can do about this. Okay, so with all of this in mind, I'm sure, as a parent of a child with special needs, or as a professional who has been, who is working with children with special needs, you must have all, just a second, you must have all been involved, or you must have all faced such scenarios where you were observing rigid behaviors in children with autism and maybe other developmental disabilities, and I'm sure that they were of different natures, right? And some of them were very obvious to you, and some of them would have been very puzzling for you. So let us go ahead and explore, what are the different kinds of, presentations we can have. So meanwhile, before I begin with it, so we have to first understand that autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder, right? And with it come a lot of neurologically driven behaviors. In the framework of understanding challenging behaviors, we discussed about how Dr. Copeland has given the examples and explanations on how certain behaviors are out of control of the children, and they are directly connected to how the brain is processing and its connection with the body and the outcome as a behavior, right? We know that these are the early signs of ASD, and these are the main key factors that distribute them. But if we go into the core of understanding, these three are the triads of impairment in ASD, and I've been talking about them in every workshop. So social and emotional interaction, then flexibility of thought and language, reciprocity, responsiveness, decoding the other person's verbal and non-verbal behavior, understanding our own state, emotional state, internal and external environment, and then responding accordingly. All of these are persistent challenges for children with autism. By now, we know that, right? We have been talking about it a lot, right? So as I would go ahead, this just explains in a finer detail that if one child with autism or developmental delays is put in a social scenario, these are the things that he is going to experience, right? These are the challenges that he is going to face many or oftentimes, okay? So even in the diagnostic criteria in DSM-5s and everything, they mention clearly that restricted interests are a part of ASD. Repetitive behaviors, adherence to routine is there. All these things are mentioned in the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for autism spectrum disorders. Okay, so this is the.
Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. If you could just hold your mic a little closer and then
like this.
Some of our participants. Yeah, now it's better.
Yeah, like yesterday.
Sure. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Now better?
Yes, ma'am. Totally.
Okay. So we are going to focus more on all the triads. Upon that, we are going to focus more on this. Okay, the imagination part, the flexibility of the thoughts part. Okay, so this has the direct link towards the rigid behaviors. So you can see the list of the rigid behaviors in front of you that are there. Repetitive actions are there, restricted interests are there. There are a lot of rituals and routines that the children follow, right? And the puzzling part is that if you go and stop them in their routine or their rituals, it's very upsetting for them. And a lot of times when we do that, that leads to a massive tantrum or an outburst or a meltdown. Apparently, to our eyes, what we can see is that the routine that they're engaging into, the ritual that they're engaging into, is not making any sense. However, it is so much important for the children that when we disturb it, they become clearly upset and it can lead to serious behaviors, sometimes even self-injurious behaviors, right? So compulsive behaviors, resistance to change, they have to keep talking certain things, they have to keep doing certain things. These are all the examples that you can see. On top of it, ASD has a comorbidity. In all of these things, you can see the comorbidity that the autistic individuals have. They have OCD and they also have anxiety. Okay, so as part of the psychopathology symptoms, they are there. I mean, autism spectrum conditions are completely different. With that, on top of it, in addition to that, they have anxiety sometimes, and they also have obsessive compulsive disorders separately. Okay, so let us go ahead and explore a little bit. So James Copeland, Dr. Copeland, as they have given the clear link between the behavioral challenges and their link towards the neurological functioning, as we had discussed, that I would want to repeat again that it is not in the child's control. Partially, sometimes it is there in his control, but most of the times it is completely out of their control. Okay, that's why they are neurologically driven behaviors. So it is not simply behavioral. Like, neurodevelopmental, like typically developing children also exhibit challenging behaviors. Like, for example, they may create a scene, or they may hit, or may insist and keep nagging, or throw a thing or something like that to get an object or an activity that they want, and maybe something that they want to get it their way. These children with special needs also show these types of challenging behaviors, which we can say are there for the reason of, let's say, tangible or attention. But in addition to that, there are certain behaviors which cannot be classified clearly only behavior. They have a neurologically driven component to it. And we discussed in detail how the regulation of sleep, arousal, and attention play a part in it. What is cognitive rigidity and abnormal sensory processing and everything. So, you can always go back to the first workshop and you can understand how we step by step understood what it all meant. So now we are going to, focus on this, and I'm also going to touch upon this. Okay, so if we start understanding the cognitive rigidity, before that, I would like to give you some real life examples, all right? And once I finish with the examples, I would love to hear some examples from you also in the chat box. Okay, so let's discuss. Okay, I'm sure you must have come across certain situations like this. So this is an example I have given before also in my workshops. This is a favorite example of mine, and it helps us understand how the brain of a child with autism functions. Okay, so a child with ASD gets very upset, bursts into tears, melts down upon seeing all the charts gone from the classroom. I have explained this, I've used this example before also. Let's see another example. Okay, a child with high functioning autism gets upset severely when the sun starts to set. So this is an example I have taken from the original paper of Dr. Kanner. Dr. Kanner is the one who coined the term autism, and he wrote his paper in 1942, if I'm not wrong. And he came up with this term, he came up with these observations. So before he wrote a paper on 9 different children, and before he wrote the paper on them, all these children were supposed to have, they were called as having childhood schizophrenia. But based on his observations, based on his data, based on his peculiarity of the symptoms that his clients presented, these children presented, he wrote a nice paper and he coined this term autism. And in that, there is one case of one particular boy who would get severely upset every time the sun would set, start to set. Now, this is a very interesting example, and you keep this in mind. We will keep discussing this as we go towards the end and everything. You will start understanding why this might be happening to that boy and everything. You will come up with your own examples and explanations towards it. I'm sure about that. Okay, so just keep this example in mind. A child with ADHD and ASD gets up every day in the morning, and the first thing that he does is that he starts repetitively asking a series of questions about one particular remote that they have in the house. This is a real life example. I'm dealing with the child. Okay. And if you don't answer, this is a routine. Every day it has to happen. If this doesn't happen, if he does not get his answers to the same questions, even to the things that he is, familiar with every day, the same things that are happening every day, he will ask the same series of questions about that remote. And if he does not get the answers someday, it has led in the past to very serious self-injurious behaviors as well. Okay. Case 4. Okay. A child with ASD scores excellent in math and science. The child is brilliant. Okay. You can make out the child is brilliant. But he fails miserably in languages and, let's say, PT. Is not just comfortable in doing PT, and language stuff is something that he just miserably fails into it. Or if we modify, this is again another real life example that I have come across. He scores excellent in MCQ tests, but same content, same chapter, even the same question, if you ask him in a narrative or descriptive way, is not able to do a very good performance. Very peculiar examples these are. A very young child with ASD enters his school premise and he goes to his classroom via the exact same routine every day. There is another routine. There are 2 other routines which we tried to take him to, but there was super resistance to it. Okay? All right. Now this is something that you might have come across often as professionals. Okay? You're in the middle of a therapy session. Everything is going well. And suddenly your child with autism starts flapping hands or laughing inappropriately or just, jumps up from this chair and, just paces down the hall like, very rapidly or, things like that. So I'm sure you must have come across or experienced things like that, right? So, yeah. So now let us go into the depth of understanding the rigidity in terms of thoughts and imagination and its link towards the behavior. Okay, everybody can hear me nicely?
Yes, ma'am, loud and clear.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So now when we're talking about the cognitive rigidity, these are all the pointers that we need to keep in mind. Okay. So there is something called as shifting of mental sets that we naturally do. As neurotypicals, we keep doing that naturally. So now what do I mean by shifting of natural shifting of mental sets? So for example, now I'm talking to you. My attention is focused on something else. At the same time, if I have to stand up and go out, drink some water and come back, that is perfectly okay with me. However, these 2 are separate actions and activities, which require, certain amount of focus. And I can shift between these 2. I can shift my focus from these 2 activities very easily and very swiftly. It doesn't take any effort for me. Without even realizing, I do it every day, thousands of times. Right? This is called the swiftness or easiness in the shifting of mental sets. Now, due to this is related to the attention or the focus. So this requires much more higher order cognitive processes than I can simply say. Okay, so it comes in a package of everything, right? So it involves visual processing, what is happening in my environment, and according to that, I'm deciding how to perform my actions or take a course of action and everything. It involves logical reasoning. Okay, fine example. For example, this is on. I can't just go like that. I will have to pause this or put myself on the off the video and then go drink some water, come back and put it on again. So there is a sequence that I have to follow and that I have to do it mentally by imagining. Then there is, let's say, problem solving. For example, what if I do all the stuff, the primary stuff, I put myself off the video, I go towards my water bottle and the water bottle is empty or it is not there. So what I do, I use my problem solving skills and I figure out a solution. All right. So this is n number of examples are n number of skills, higher order cognitive skills are required into it. So the shifting of the mental sets happens very naturally and easily for it. But because autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder, all these things don't play a role as they are supposed to play a role for us, for the child with autism. So they have challenges in visual processing, they have challenges in sequencing, they have challenges in auditory processing, they have challenges in problem solving, they have challenges in thinking imaginatively, social problem solving, that what am I going to do as a cause and effect and what can I do to solve this problem? All right. So that is why, because of the transmission of the neurons and the reception of the information does not happen as it is supposed to happen. Okay. So as a result of that, this quick fraction of second processing doesn't happen for them so easily. So what's happening over here is that my ability to shift the focus from one thing to another is limited. As a result, I find it easier to keep doing one thing that is there in my control rather than swiftly shifting to sets or different sets of things. Are you getting the link between it? It's a little complicated, but if you think about it as a person who is doing a trapeze. So, like, one trapeze, when the person is doing a trapeze in the circus, he lets go of the other thing and then holds on to the other one, lets go of that thing and then goes on to the next one. So this action is not happening so easily for them. So what the person feels or thinks, it is, I think, better for me to, to hang on to the one trapeze that I have. And let's continue with that because I find myself in control. I find okay with it. Right. So just try and understand how you can relate this thing to, the children that you have, observed or, come in contact with. Now, this example is clearly given by Dr. Copeland in his explanation of, understanding the framework, the neurologically driven behaviors and everything. Okay. So the other thing is that visual processing, discrimination, auditory discrimination, generalization, imitation, all these are obstacles for them, which we use n number of times in our daily functioning as well as learning. Okay, effective learning, effective functioning. So that causes a lot of hindrance in their learning and performing as an individual, as an independent individual. Okay, so when I have to, let's say, do a lot of social problem solving, I have to actually take help of somebody or a visual. Okay, so then I may find the situations in my control and I can perform better. Same is the case with routines. Routines define a certain level of predictability to the individuals with autism. And it is a big thing for them. Our brains are naturally designed in a way where we can't handle abstract a lot. So if we are given, anything, any situation which is abstract, anything that is abstract, we immediately come up with some sort of a frame to it so that we can make meaning of it. This is a famous experiment done by Gestalt, a psychologist. So there is a therapy stream named after him, Gestalt psychology. So he gave a famous experiment. Okay, so he drew just points of points in this motion on a picture, dotted points, and showed it to different people and asked them, what is this? Without failure, people came up with the answer that it is probably you can give me in chat. I hope my action was okay. So this is the dotted line, you can imagine, circle.
Circle, ball.
Circle. All right. So circle. So we tried to assign some frame to that abstract pattern we were given to. Right? But because this ability of perceiving or understanding making a differentiation between abstract and concrete, or their own, now with imagination, you came up with, the name as circle or ball, right? But this imagination, flexibility of thought is not there in the children or individuals with autism. So you can imagine how much distress they may be experiencing when they are exposed to abstract things. And because abstract is not so great, routines are perfect. Predictability is a good place that they can, find themselves in control of. They know exactly what is going to come next, right? So routines are something that they know. They are in charge of it. Okay, so that's why there is adherence to routines. Okay, so transition, you have to shift from one thing to another, completely shifting the sets of actions and course of action to something else. So you will observe a lot of resistance when there are transitions. Many children who are moderate to severe, they are the ones who find it very, very severe. At times, even high-functioning children have problems when they are, exposed to transitions. Very quick shifting transitions is not something that they are okay with. Okay, so as I was explaining to you, they have a certain pattern of thinking which is called as black and white thinking or all or nothing thinking. So shifting from abstract to concrete, the gray area in between is something that is difficult. So when the things are presented to children or individuals with autism in factual manner, concrete manner, clear and structured manner, that is when they are okay with, or they find it, under their control. Anything you ask them, so pretend play. Pretend play involves a lot of abstract thinking, a lot of imagination, and thinking creatively in a different way than described or than it is actual or functional. So that's why pretend play is sometimes very difficult for children with children on the spectrum. If you tell them ambiguously, right? So in the MCQ question example that I gave you, MCQs are factual; they're concrete. He knows what is to be selected and everything. But if he's supposed to write a descriptive answer about that, it's a problem. So again, I would like to give an example. So 2 plus 2 is always going to be 4. It is a factual information. That's why they're so good at maths, numbers, factual information, right? But there are 100 ways of responding to hi or greeting someone or someone else when someone else is greeting me. So for example, I can say hello, I can say hi, I can say what's up, I can say how are you doing, I can say what do you do, and equally there are a number of ways of responding to it. So this is where they get, it is difficult for them. Okay. So these are the things that I just want to put in front of you so that you can understand that what exactly are the mechanisms behind the restricted patterns that they have, or ritualistic behaviors, their tendency to go into those ritualistic behaviors. Okay? So apart from routines and ritualistic behaviors, we have the self-stimulatory behaviors. And that is, as I explained before, related to the sensory processing. Okay, so our sensory processing tells us about what's happening around us also, and what is happening inside us also. Imagine if this sensory processing system is disturbed, is not functioning as it should be, what a chaos it will be. The world would be so chaotic, right? So I can't make out the meaning of the inputs that is coming from different sides to me. They're coming in various frequencies and intensities which I'm not able to modulate, which is comfortable for my ears, my eyes to send it to my brain. And I'm finding it highly reluctant, or I'm not finding it enough. So I keep seeking that. I keep going to that input more and more so that I can make meaning of it. So are you understanding both sides of the sensory processing, undersensitivity and oversensitivity? So if you see a lot of information, sensory information, you're bound to have a meltdown, right? So after listening to very, very loud music, like in discos and everything, if you're there for continuous half an hour or 1 hour, 2 hours, you will feel a discomfort, certain amount of discomfort, different types of. Now, everybody will feel it differently, but there is some amount of discomfort that when you're exposed to that much of sensory input. Okay, when there is too much of a bright light, immediately you make an effort without even knowing knowing it, that you make an effort to adjust it to your suitable brightness. Don't you do that? Right? But this, because it is normal, like the sound of the vessel of the cooker is normal for our ears, we don't seem to make any changes in our behavior or the environment as such. However, for children with autism, it is very, very, what we can say, overwhelming. And you can see all kinds of behaviors when there is sensory overload, and also there is sensory seeking. I'm sure you know much more examples. Each and everybody had come across that. So in a nutshell, if you want to see the SSBs, the self-stimulatory behaviors, the restrictive, patterns of behaviors, and the stimming, all that it is called, they are all, you have to remember this, they are all form of self-soothing. Okay, this information is too much for you probably, but try and remember it by this sentence. They tend to do it more when they are either under-aroused, or unaroused, unengaged, or uncertain or unstructured. Or on the other hand, when they are over-anxious, over-aroused, and stressed. So in these both situations, most of the times, they use these behaviors to, bring them back to some harmonious state. So they use it for self-soothing. Okay, so when the child is not engaged into something, when the child is not stimulated enough, he will go on to that input so that he can find himself stimulated. So for example, what we can do, we do warm up before exercising, right? We stimulate ourselves to a certain level so that we can provide that much attention. Right? When the children are tired in the classroom, what do we say? Stand up, raise your hand, do like this, do like that, drink a sip of water, sit down and again start writing. So there are various forms that we, without knowing, use on ourselves to bring ourselves to a homeostasis. But children with under the spectrum, they use these as their forms. Okay, and obviously, most of the times when you go and start blocking it or putting a hold on it. You say don't do it, or you hold the child from putting the cars in the straight line. You tell him no. If you do that again, I'm going to take it out, take it away, and you take the cars away. You will see that the child is going into tantrum because. Okay, so let us go ahead into more deeper understanding of how stress is related, or anxiousness or the state of anxiety is related to the restricted repetitive patterns and rigid behaviors as such. Okay, so as Lazarus and Folkman have given a very, very beautiful understanding or the statement about stress is that it matters a lot how the perception of stress is happening for us also. So a threat tends to be viewed as less catastrophic if one believes that something can be done about it. And I'm sure everybody can agree with it. Okay, so let me go ahead with an example. I want to give you a scenario, an activity-based scenario, where you have to imagine that you are in an event or a place or a situation which is like the most difficult for you. Maybe you are going to face your boss after committing some mistake, or it is a typical relative that you don't want to meet and you have to meet that day, or it is a big medical procedure that you are supposed to undergo, that you have to face, or anything which is which has been like the most difficult for you. And you are not comfortable in that. And most probably you are likely to perform very poorly there. So now you have to go there. You have to face it. How do you feel? And what do you do? I'm opening my chat box so that I can understand what your perception is about it, your points are about it. Okay. I hope everybody has understood the scenario. You'll feel scared, anxious. Sometimes you'll feel angry also. Yeah. You'll feel irritated or frustrated. Yes. You will tend to avoid or postpone. Yes. You'll be puzzled. You'll be stressed. Yes. You will try to get away from it as much as possible. You may shake the hand or something like that. Okay. Fight or flight mode. Yeah. Prepare mentally. Wow. Yes, that's what we do. Wow. We'll try to get over. Okay. Maybe leave it to the situation or something like that. Wow, some excellent responses over there. And what comes up to me that you can all agree that we might feel certain amount of stress, we might feel frustrated, we might feel very anxious about how it is going to happen, right? And what you do is sometimes you leave it to the situation, right? Sometimes you just face it and get done with it, or sometimes you try and avoid from there. You are likely to avoid or postpone it, right? And probably you will just you'll come up with some sort of preparation, mental preparation, as someone mentioned, right? That you have the tools, you have the mental tools to think about it in a different way. So here, when I say that somebody says that, okay, I may prepare myself mentally. So that person has the perception that something can be done about it. Okay, and usually this perception, when it is not there, it is catastrophic. And our young children, our individuals who have autism spectrum disorders, this feeling doesn't come easily. Okay, those mental tools of social problem solving, they don't come up so easily to them because of all the obstacles they have as the core presentation of the symptoms, and it is a catastrophic situation for them. Everyday situation is like this for them. And on top of it, they can't even express what they're feeling most of the times. So obviously, the expression is going to come out either through challenging behaviors or self-regulatory behaviors, because they want to get themselves to a state of harmony. Are you understanding the links between? Okay. So, as I was saying, I can explain it with this slide more. So, what happens is that there is another phenomena called as neuroception. So Dr. Porges is a Brazilian, if I'm not wrong, or a South American researcher. He's into biology and into animals more, but he has come up with this theory, polyvagal theory. If somebody is interested, they can go on internet and search about it. So he has come up with this concept of polyvagal theory, a nerve associated behind our small brain and everything. So what he says is that our brain, biologically, physiologically, it is designed in such a way, throughout the evolution, it has been designed in such a way that we constantly are checking for threats from the environment. Okay, that is called as neuroception. And as we perceive threats, anything can be a threat. Okay, so for example, as I said, when there is too much brightness, it is a threat for me. I can perceive biologically, it can be perceived as a threat, and I tend to do something about it. Okay, so because then I can bring my body, myself into a state of homeostasis and a state of balance, basically. So that I can have a control over myself, I can have a control over the environment, and yeah, I can feel good about it. Okay, I can perform well, I can function well. So this is neuroception. Children with ASD have faulty neuroception. Sometimes their radar detects far too many threats from the environment, and it is a complete chaos in terms of processing those and threats, and the ability, in fact, not being able to do something about it. So as I said, the vessel of the cooker, the sound can be perceived as a threat because their internal processing is not functioning as it should be functioning sensorily. So it receives, amplified input of the sound. So for us, it is like normal. But for them, it is reaching their brain with amplified effect. So it's like as if somebody is playing the vessel near their ears. And that's why certain responses go naturally by them. Okay, so there is a reason, and there is a relation in between the stress that they experience, and right after they know that okay, now the whistle is going to blow off, you will notice that either just before or after that has happened, they will tend to go into these rigid behaviors. For example, I have a child with autism who every time the whistle was about to blow, there was a certain state where the whistle would reach before blowing out, and this child would, he would come from wherever he was, and he would do this and keep rocking. All right. So you may wonder, it's difficult to explain, like it's difficult to understand and analyze such kind of a behavior. On the one hand, we can see that the child doesn't want to hear it. On the other hand, the child is not ready to leave the room. If you take the child and go out, he starts crying like very badly. He has to see it. So I just want to give you an idea about the whole neuroception and understanding of threat and everything. Okay. So immediately, once we detect a threat, our radar detects a threat. These are the ways commonly that we react. So somebody said fight and flight, but there is also additionally something called as freeze, which is also mentioned in the polyvagal theory, that we have certain part of a reptilian brain, or the content of the reptilian. We evolved from reptilians, no? So from single cell to reptilians and so far and so forth. So we have that reptilian component in our brain, the theory suggests. And according to that, you have seen that maybe reptiles do that, no? So when they're exposed with a danger, they go into freeze. They act like they're dead. And our brain In fact, children with autism, it happens very often with them that the brain goes into this freeze mode. It can go into flight mode, so escape and avoidance situations start happening. You're asking too many questions about geography. 10 questions, okay. 12th questions, I'm off. I've taken a flight already. There can be fight response, okay? You're constantly saying, put this block here, put this block here, put this block here. All right, okay, I'm throwing it all away. Or I'm taking the block and I'm throwing it on your face. Or I can just simply stare at it, go blank. So that's the freeze response. Okay, so you may have come across such responses, and I would love to share one or two when we start the Q&A. So these are the different responses that you can see. You can see extreme behaviors like tantrums and outbursts, but the child can only just elope or stare into blank or something like that, just like this. You can see responses when they're trying to avoid that input or something like that. Tantrums and meltdowns are caught very often, and also the stimming behaviors. Okay, so I hope that you might have started by now to formulate a link between these explanations and these behaviors, I think. And wow, the theory further explains a very, very important part here. So this is a link between all the 2 points I proved or explained earlier. I didn't prove anything, I'm sorry. I just explained it to you. That there is a certain content of stress and anxiety that is related to these behaviors, and also the neurologically driven behaviors and all the part of it. So now the third part is the social and emotional interaction. Okay, so the same theory suggests that the individuals feel connected. When the individuals feel socially connected, this feeling that something can be done comes in a larger context, and they are okay. They're okay to deal with the stressful situation. So the neuroception is acting very healthily when they have that social engagement factor. And this social engagement factor can be anything: a peer, a partner, a spouse, a therapist, any social engagement, or rather just going out in the community and mixing with people, or going out and having a drink somewhere, or just engaging into somewhere and coming back. That can also be a form of social engagement when what we're talking about. But if you can see, our children, our individuals with autism spectrum disorders, they have this big blocks. So that door is also not naturally opened for them. So how is this homeostasis going to come down? It is obviously going to result into self-stimulatory and rigid restrictive behaviors. Okay, so yeah. So as I said, social engagement is something which allows us to, let go of the anxiousness we feel, the stress that we feel from unavoidable situations, or the stressors that we call them. Okay? Now, next, I have explained this before also, how the functioning of the brain happens in children, in individuals with autism, that, about pruning and everything. No? So they have larger number of neural pathways in their brain than compared to their typical age appropriates. Okay. So what it means is that every information passes through these neural pathways to our brain, and that is made sense of, and then further passed on to different body parts, central nervous system and everything, and then we act accordingly, we behave accordingly. This processing is all jumbled up here. Okay, so they have way more neural pathways than one could expect. Is my voice echoing by any chance?
No, ma'am, it's not.
No. Okay. I heard a lag, so I just asked. Sorry. So this is called pruning, if anybody is aware about it. So what happens is that because of all these neural pathways, it's kind of a traffic jam. So actual necessary or vital input, to be reached to the brain, it has to take a lot of time. And this research study, this medical news article, this mentions that it's in some individuals, it can stay up to 20 seconds also. That means the time that it requires, the time that it lands on our sensory modalities, it could be visual, it could be auditory, anything. The time that it requires to reach to the brain can be up to 20 seconds. For us, it happens within fraction of seconds. Very minute time we require for that. And can you imagine? So I give this example repeatedly that, the teacher is saying that put this block here or put it here. So if this child is requiring 20 seconds, and again I say put this block here, it is going to be mixed up or it is going to be entangled with the signal that has gone up before. And before anything can be processed, third instruction comes, fourth instruction comes, and we sit here, the professionals or whoever is working with the child saying that I told him 5 times, why isn't he doing it? That is why a lot of people ask this question into their initial interviews, to parents who are supposed to, get their children diagnosed or they are in the process of diagnosis. So the psychologist asks them, have you ever wondered that the child has some auditory or listening problems, or the child does not listen or cannot hear, or has he hearing loss or something? Have you ever wondered? Because a number of times you keep saying the child doesn't do it. It's almost like that. So it's very complicated. So auditory processing difficulties, they have disorders related to that. They have, sometimes they have hearing loss also, which is hard to determine. So I have a 3.5-year-old girl child with me whom I'm working with. She has 80% of hearing loss to her right ear. That is just adding on to all the problems that we're having. Okay, so we have to, remember all these things, and versus